It is Sunday, the 20th of January, and the Bureau has issued a potential warning for Townsville coming this week. A cyclone is probably on its way. Since I've lived in Townsville, we are always on the outskirts of their projected path of the cyclone, but for this one, we are right in the middle. So there's a good chance that we may not get a direct hit, but we will be close enough that we're going to feel a lot of the impact. And with the cyclone comes a lot of rain, and having been in this workshop for multiple years and having gone through multiple major rain events, the bottom of this workshop will probably flood. I've done so much to try and get around it and mitigate the flooding, but at the end of the day, when you're getting 50 mil of rain in an hour, doesn't matter what plumbing you have, unless you're draining out to the streets straight away, which I'm not, your soil just can't absorb that amount of water. So I'm cleaning up all of the mess in here because as the water rises and picks up all that shit and debris, it becomes a nightmare for cleaning afterwards. So I'm cleaning it out now, getting it ready for the potential for flooding. One of the things I look forward to in my woodworking career at some point is to have, well, it's two things really. A workshop that doesn't flood, so it's elevated enough, and one that has a good flat slab. This slab is really dodgy. I guess the nice thing is it means that you don't worry too much about it. So there's oil spills, paint spills, doesn't really matter. But I just want to be able to have nicely placed tools that aren't constantly needing to be shimmed and propped up. And when you film in this workshop, everything looks so wonky because it's all on its own plane, because nothing is necessarily level, it's just not wobbling around. One day I'm gonna get a gigantic property, put a massive slab down, and either do a tin shed or, if I'm lucky, maybe a wood shed. And it's gonna have a nice flat slab that I can put wheels on everything and just glide it around, and it's gonna be amazing. Not that I'm not thankful. This is an amazing workshop. I'm blessed and very grateful to be able to work in a space like this. So all of this timber in this corner has got to go somewhere. That's just been milled flat again after leaving it to acclimate. So when it floods in here and it becomes very humid, hopefully it doesn't mess that up again, because that's now flat and I want it to stay flat. And if you're screaming at the screen now saying, dude, just get yourself some timber racks and get it off the floor. Yes, that is a plan for the future, but right now I have so many other projects that I need to get done that timber storage is just not a priority. This belt sander is on wheels, high enough that it's not going to be a problem. I'm not too worried about the water affecting that. And then this dust extractor, because of what it does, I'm not too concerned about any water building up. But again, this distance here, I mean, that's about 50 mil. It's unlikely that it's going to come up that high. You know, obviously you've got to plan for the worst. And just to put in perspective, this is the bottom end of the workshop. This will normally get a few mil of water come in. Since I've been in this house, we've had one major flooding event and then one that was catastrophic. It was just off the chart, 1 in 100 year stuff. That 1 in 100 years, the water had risen. Now keep in mind there's quite a grade from where you are down to here. The water had come all the way up, all the way up, all the way up. Here, up at this point, we were looking at maybe 50 mil off the, above the ground level. So down at that end, the water was so high, it was like up to here, 2 bricks up, that's where the water was. And that was pretty intense. I actually wasn't here for that. I was on holiday in South Africa, and my in-laws, who were taking care of the house, they were running around frantically trying to do the best that they can to keep the water out. But eventually it came in and there was nothing that they could do. One thing I will say is this door, which has a seal underneath, it's one of these ones where as the door closes, it drops like a rubber fin down. This is amazing at keeping the water out. So many times I've had the water on the outside rising, and then you just have a slow trickle coming through the 2 corners when the water is that high up off the door. It's amazing how well they work. I can't then come into the workshop through this door. I've got to come in through the other door because I know if I open this, all the water's going to run in. It's amazing how well they work. And I remember when I got back from South Africa, this door I could hardly open. And that was because about 50 mil up was water in here. And all the timber had just swelled to the point that I could barely get the door open. That particular flood was a 1 in 100. So it's unlikely that it's going to happen again. The workshop survived, which makes me feel good that, worst case scenario, it's going to be okay. But obviously, I want to try and keep the water out as best as possible. It's so wild. This is all that's left of the celery top pine. I had this massive pile of it, and that's all that's left. Everything else has been turned into something. I think it's probably because of the 1 year down in Tassie, but I'm really struggling to adjust to this heat and humidity. This summer feels just next level. It keeps getting hotter and more humid, and I think that's it, right? We've hit the cap. And then in a week's time, it's even worse. I think, right, that's got to be the peak. And then in a week's time, it's even worse. I don't remember it being this humid, this oppressive before. So I don't know if this is just a particularly bad summer or Tassie made me a bit soft, but I'm really struggling this summer with this heat and humidity. Even if the cyclone doesn't happen, this has still been a very good excuse to spend some time cleaning the workshop properly. All right, I'm happy with that. That bottom end is all taken care of. It's cleaned up, so it's not going to be a huge mess if the water does come in. I'm still going to be working in the workshop this week. I've got my first commission coming up, which I'm really excited about. So this pile of Vic ash, this is going to be turned into essentially a giant pantry, but it's going to be a reptile enclosure. So it's going to be, as I say, look like a pantry with big Perspex sliding doors, and that's for my first client, which I'm super excited about. So I'm hopefully going to be getting onto that this week, as long as the cyclone doesn't mess everything up. But as I make mess, I'll just clean up as I go. All right, nice to have a clean workshop. And talking about client work, just yesterday I had an inquiry through Facebook. Someone's looking at getting 2 very simple and elegant tables were the brief. So I've done this drawing for the person. That's the table. So this one's square and then the other one's got slightly different dimensions. But the idea was just to send her this and say this is what the design would look like. She's happy with it, so now it's just about pricing up the job, and hopefully that comes through. With this project, I could have gone with something a bit more extravagant and interesting and complicated, but because I'm still in the early stages of the business and essentially working out the business process to a degree, I wanted to go with something simple that I know how to do. I've made 100 of these types of tables. This should be straightforward. So hopefully this will just be a nice, simple project for me to learn my business process or refine my business process. And it will also be one that I will make some decent profit on.